ancestor. They have religious belief on so and so totemic thing, okay, or an animal, plant, like whatever it is. So in their societal structure, like if they have a plant or an animal as a totem, so plant or an animal or something natural is ingrained in the structure, in this structure of the society, maybe, okay. And how is this keeping the structure of the society intact, okay? So these things like this. And okay, okay. Radcliffe Radcliffe Brown was a structural functionalist. And another thing about Radcliffe Brown. Radcliffe Brown is basically a functionalist, but he was, but he wanted him to be called something else, not functionalist anta, because he was totally opposing Malinowski. So he was not ready to be put in under the same bracket. So he modified his theory to bring in the structural aspect also. But Levi-Strauss, as you said, well and good. It's about the mental structure that forms within. But how does it gets reflected in the society also? Mhm. Yeah, correct. Mhm. Correct, in the mind. I know this binary opposition. But what I'm saying is, whatever that gets, as you said, the psychological theory, so it gets reflected in the society also. Even society also has a structure. And human society, human culture, or human mind, human life, their role is only to keep this structure intact, not to make sure that it gets disintegrated or it gets affected. Always to keep the structure intact. Like our, like there's just one applied example if I have to give, like our educational system. Are we ready to let go of the school-based, curricular-based, exam-based education system in India? They're not ready to. It's a structure that has been created already. There is a commissioner for public instructions. There is at a district level, divisional level. There is a head, deputy directors or something at this, and lower than that, someone like block education officer, and lower than that, there's a headmaster, teacher. So there's a structure that has been created, a system at place. Our role, our sole purpose, and every function that we are performing is just to keep this structure intact, alive, and strengthen it. Maybe we are not ready to make. We are not ready if someone comes up with an antithesis, the destruction of the structure. So Levi-Strauss was this: function is not important. Our function is not important. Whatever structure that is there, keeping it intact is important. That is our purpose of life, kind of. Okay, this was what he came up with. But before this, as you said, binary opposition, structuralist mindset that we have to divide things and choose one kind of, that's also there. The reflection is this in reality. So even if I'm talking about totemism also, as you said, there is this uh, binary opposition, sacred, profane kind of binary opposition. That's also there. But how is the totemic structure existing? How our performances are keeping it intact? So that's what is the question. And I could not come up with an explanation for this paper. It was incomplete, so I'll complete it and then give. Okay. So in that I've mentioned what exactly maybe to be added. So next question. Uh, yes. Question. Exactly. How do? So any theory. And first of all, let me tell you this: socio-cultural theory, the whole socio-cultural theory, is solely based on the premise of chapter 6, anthropological theories. If you have read, understood anthropological theories well, you will be able to answer all the other chapters very well. A chapter on religion is not different from anthropological theories. A chapter on marriage is not different from anthropological theories. I think I've asked a question on marriage also. Okay, came out of nowhere, but it's part of anthropological theories. So make sure that out of all the chapters 2 to 8, this chapter 6, you give everything and basically understand everything, and you should be able to replicate the same concept. Any related question is being asked, you need to bring in the theory also, the proponent of the theory also, and basically in 1 or 2 lines explain the theory also. Okay. Next question was, culture is a man-made part of environment. So I've explained enough to those who came that day. So this was told by Herzkovitz. So I'm just expecting you to substantiate what did Herzkovitz tell. So he says that culture is a man-made part of environment. This simply means that this simply talks about environmental determinism. Okay, whatever our culture may be, ultimately it has been determined by the climate or the climatic region where we are living. So this is number one. Number two, a similar concept that has been spoken of in the anthropological theories chapter is cultural ecology by Julian Stewart. How our culture is a resultant of the ecology that we live in. How is it affecting the ecology, helping the ecology? How is the ecology helping the societies thrive? So this is basically Julian Stewart's theory, and then you need to come specifically to Herzkovitz and this statement. And culture is a man-made part of environment. There are two different aspects of culture. One, intangible aspects like your religion, ideology, politics, etc. And there is something called the tangible aspects of culture, like your food, clothing, and artifacts, technology, machinery, etc. So you need to speak of how environment has influenced culture. Okay, so many a times our technology is solely the resultant of the environment that we live in. Like for example, Neanderthals had a Mousterian culture. It was a both lithic as well as a mixture of non-lithic tools also. And why did he go for small game hunting, fishing, stuff like this? Is because there was climate change at that time during when Neanderthals survived, and because of climate change there was ice age basically at that time, and there was no vast grasslands, vast plains existing. So he had to depend on smaller game. Fishing also, he used to use harpoons and he used to do fishing. And fishing started during this Mousterian period only because they had a lack of big game animals basically. So entirely ecology decided how Neanderthals lived. Ecology decided how they got extinct also. Okay, they got too much, they got over evolved. They evolved beyond what was necessary for the race to survive. Okay, and then after climate change, after ice age ended, after the earth's climate got back to the previous kind of climate, he had to change in an opposite direction, in a backward direction. That did not happen. One such theory says this: he over evolved and he got extinct. Okay, so probably everything decided by the ecology, by climate. So this is what the question is expecting you to critically evaluate. When it says critically evaluate, you need to talk of things like how environment may not affect the cultural traits also in us. Like I was giving this example, there is British type of climate in n number of places in the world, but not every community that is surviving in British type of climate are as enterprising or as active, as industrial as the British. Okay, so culture not in every aspect may be a direct resultant of environment. Sometimes culture evolves better than the environmental requirements. Okay, so this should also be spoken of. Not every time it is cultural determinism. Environmental determinism. Some things are culturally determined also. Okay, and plains were there everywhere, but not everywhere that very effective, a very eminent urban society thrived like like in our Harappas and Mohenjo-daros. Not everywhere. Plains were there everywhere. Sumatra, there were plains in similar plains in not Sumatra, sorry, your Mesopotamia and Mesopotamian civilization and other civilizations, or Egyptian civilization, but not Sumerian, sorry. So not urban structures like in ours. Just saying, okay? Next question. Hmm. 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 Okay, okay, one second. So if this is environment, this is culture. Itarana? Got it. So this part of environment is natural. This has not been man-made, correct? So this was man-made. This only this part of environment is man-made. So what does it say? Okay. 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 Uh-huh. Even interpreting it the other way, we are not going out of this box, alva. We are staying inside the box. If it was this, you could have told that we are taking things from environment and creating this. But if it is this, it is out of environment we have created. Okay? And it can be that this part is unique and special. Nature by its own self cannot create things which we have created it. Okay? And that is a resultant of culture. That is our own innovation, our own enterprising nature. That's there. Classical evolution, as you said, psychic unity, yes, everything explains. But that's what I said, not everything is determined by environment. Because of our own innovation also, we've created something. That's why critically evaluate, that's the last part of the answer. Both things you have to talk about, but in here, the emphasis should be on environment. Okay? Next question, genealogical. Over evolving. We are evolving. Okay. So what does it do then? Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, okay. Okay. Okay, okay. It may lead to extinction. Why? I'm asking extinction. Why? Over evolution. If the climate, in the case of, as in the case of Neanderthals, climate change happened. Few of the Neanderthals, they got adapted. The progressive ones got adapted to the newer change in environment, but the conservative ones, they did not. Okay? And physical, that's what, survival of the fittest. Few of us who evolve well, will survive in future, and few of us, as you are saying, bony growth and etc., probably that they will not take birth alive. Probably the nature will reject them in that ways. You will not be able to successfully live after you go out. So in the fetus itself, stillbirth may happen of such kind of children. So that's how nature will segregate and actually choose only the fittest ones. So that's there. But one thing is for sure, we are meddling with the nature. That is one thing is there. Survival of the fittest, we are not allowing nature to choose everything. We are actually detecting chromosomal abnormalities. We are trying to, through Cas9 CRISPR technology, even correct the hereditary chromosomal disorders also. We are trying to meddle with nature's segregation. So all these things, of course, will have its impact, will have a very great impact. And yeah, of course, ultimately nature will decide. So who's going through, who has to be there. Malthusian theory. To one extent it is true. Malthusian theory. Okay, next one. The last question. So discuss neo-evolutionism. Full stop. Evaluate Leslie White's contribution towards understanding cultural evolution. This is just evolution, not revolution. Okay. So I'm sorry for that. So discuss neo-evolutionism. You know what is neo-evolutionism. You will talk about this and evaluate Leslie White's contribution. So firstly, say who is Leslie White, okay, and then talk about the theory, the concept he came up with, the energy-based theory he came up with. There is a formula that C is equal to TE, okay, so or C is equal to ET. So this is a formula that he came up with, and he started applying this formula in assessing the cultural advanced nature of different civilizations, and how people during savagery used to harness energy, during barbarism used to harness energy, civilization, what is the future prospect. And yes, so and criticisms to Leslie White's concept also finally. So this completes your answer. And this was a 15 marker one. You should have answered it in 250 words. And in the test series I am seeing you are not sticking to the page limit, not more than 2 pages, 2 sides for 150 words. In the exam also, not more than 2 sides you will have in the exam, and 15 markers, not more than 3 sides you will have. 300 words, 20 markers, 4 sides, not more than that. So restrict. I am seeing people writing answers 5-6 pages, not useful, not called for. Next question. Okay, so I'll just pick the straightforward questions. I'll just leave it for yourself. I'll just pick 2B. Briefly discuss the ethical issues in anthropological fieldwork with special reference to participant observation. Okay, so one by one. Shailaja madam, start. So briefly discuss ethical issues in anthropological fieldwork. Anthropological fieldwork. One second. Number one, ethical issue. Okay, so voluntary participation. Just in case of a clinical research, is it okay to have to perform a trial or a research on a person who's brain dead, vegetative state? He is just breathing, he is not even conscious. Okay, he is being supposedly taken in that manner. If taken in that manner, he is just breathing. We are actually assisting him to just to stay alive, but he is not conscious, he is not enjoying his life. Probably we don't know, he might be suffering in his bed, maybe. Okay, so is it okay to conduct a trial on such a person? He is not even there conscious to give consent. He is not talking, he is not following your commands to give consent. Take consent, caretaker's consent. Okay, so is it okay to take caretaker's consent and do it? Is it ethically okay? That's what. Will you do it? Will you do it? Okay, suppose that this trial, that's what. Suppose if this research is going to give you a breakthrough with respect to finding out a solution for a deadly disease like Ebola. It's spreading like wildfire in your own place. You can do this research on him. and there is maximum possibility probability that if done on this person may yield a result, a positive result. So in such case, yes, okay. So basically, going by utilitarian ethics will go for this, but we can't claim that it is right. It can't claim that it is wrong. Applied utility, okay, utilitarian basically. Okay, fine. So voluntary participation. This is important. Just because the tribe is uneducated, thus just because society is not at all aware of whatever that we are going to perform, doesn't give us the license to perform research on them. Voluntary participation, okay. And second one, as she mentioned, consent also. Not just participation, consent. And what is involved in consent? And exactly. So consent meaning everything that I'm going through, that I will be performing. So being clear on all terms. So why am I here? What is the purpose of my presence in your community? What is the benefit that I am going to gain out of this, out of participation here? So when I make things clear, everything clear, okay, with that community, that consent will have a meaning, and then only them giving acceptance, yes, will have a meaning. And then what else, sir? Huh? Okay. In fieldwork, ethical issue. What is ethical issue here? Ethnocentrism. What is ethical issue here? Yeah. So the researcher may himself be impacted on a negative, in a negative manner. Okay. So we are asking anthropology students to come up and take up anthropology. We are sending them to, in the name of fieldwork, to various remote isolated places with communities like them, and tomorrow they may get hurt. Okay, there may be a negative impact on their psyche as such, on their physical health, mental health, etc. So that aspect is also there. Okay, fine. Hmm. Okay. So being subjective and judgmental about the society, about whom he is going to perform his research. Okay, that's also maybe ethically wrong if you're doing it. Okay, exactly. So while you participate, what kind of involvement you show? To what extent are you showing your involvement into the in that society basically? So if some strife is going on, people killing each other, you're from a so-called civilized society. You go there, study them. You're studying them. Now you're going to stand, take stand there, take one person's stand and advocate for him, saying you were right and this person was wrong. You should not be doing this. Can you do it? Is that kind of involvement feasible or possible? In actually, in letter, it is not supposed to happen. Okay, so involvement should be purely on objective grounds, purely on research basis, the purpose of research. Okay, you have gone there to study traditional medicines in a society. Your whole and soul concentration throughout your stay should be on traditional medicines and nothing else. The family pattern, the lineage that is there, the marriage pattern, etc., etc. You are not bothered for that. Traditional medicines only on the research topic basically. So to what extent you involve with that community is again a question. It's a dilemmatic question. Okay. Anything else? Okay. That's also, yes, that's also, especially when you are a participant observer, you tend to stay there, observe all walks of life of a community, but ultimately you stand there to intervene in their lives, bring in changes. Is that possible, or is that allowed in an anthropological fieldwork? Is a dilemma again. So, being a participant observer, how objective you should remain until the end is again a question. Okay. So I think these issues are enough to talk about, to briefly discuss about ethical issues in anthropological fieldwork, and I hope you can explain on these terms. Okay. Okay. Next question, 2D. Last question in second. Discuss the forms of family as described by Morgan. Evaluate the emerging family patterns in present societies. Okay, this has two sub questions. One is forms of family as described by Morgan. Who's Morgan? He's an evolutionist. What is this? Classical evolutionist. Main or important contribution of Morgan? Kinship studies terminologies, and also to cultural evolution. How